ball slapping. It's a podcast all about slapping them balls.
Hello and welcome to Ball Slapping, the podcast all about slapping balls against walls and everything in between. We're going to talk about fives, tennis, real tennis, paddleball, pickleball, all kinds of stuff. So I'm your host, Daniel Grant, and I've got the YouTube channel Ball Slaps, which is loads of videos which accompany the podcast. And I've got a long background in one-wall handball especially, but a lot of other sports as well. And really, I just love slapping balls against walls. And I'll be joined by several different co-hosts over this series, but my first co-host is the GOAT, the OP. Let me introduce you, Gareth Price. In fact, Gaz, introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Gareth Price, and I'm also a off-time ball slapper, having slapped balls for about 25 years now, probably. Almost week in, week out, until a slight hiatus in the last 5 years. I've still got a strong interest in slapping of balls.
Excellent. Well, I guess we should have a chat about why we're doing this podcast in the first place. I suppose I've probably got the answer to it, but why do you think I've asked you to do this podcast with me, Gareth?
Well, I guess, the time is now. There is no better time to hit balls against walls. There's certain surge in popularity of some ball slapping style sports. And I guess we're sort of piggybacking off the popularity of that and trying to, get more people interested in talking about it and watching it and finding out what they are.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, so as you know, I started Ball Slaps, the YouTube channel, a little while ago. I was lucky enough to get a fellowship to basically travel around the world to see how people hit balls against walls. Yeah. And I do that because I run One Wall UK, which it's now a charity. And we're about getting inner city kids active by playing one wall handball. And it's basically the simplest sport of hitting a ball against anything, with anything. And, I also run the European tour, this, that, and the other. And as I traveled the world, you begin to realize there's actually a plethora of sports. There's so many where you're hitting a ball with your hand, with a racket, with a paddle, with anything.
As we record today, I just found out a new sport yesterday that I had never seen before.
Oh, yeah.
It is beach tennis, Brazilian beach tennis.
Oh, yeah.
Like, imagine beach volleyball, but you've got like a paddle racket.
I've seen that recently.
Sort of a pumped ball.
Yeah.
So these things are kind of popping up all over the place, like especially with the rise of things like TikTok and, the reels and stuff where you can just, people are interested in seeing these slightly weird, ocho, outlandish style sports.
Yeah.
And they're sick and people are engaging with them. And I think that's really great,
Yeah. And what we want to do on this podcast is basically highlight a number of these sports, but not just, what is the sport? We want to get on experts. We want to talk about them. We want to find people who play them to a high level, maybe. We want to find people who maybe invented the sports and are behind them and invested in the case of some. For example, we've got an episode coming up with the world #1 real tennis player. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we've got the world #1 fives player coming up and the European #1 one-wall handball player. So there's a lot of stuff coming along. And hopefully, yes, we can highlight it. We'll have a bit of fun along the way. We're going to rate each sport as we go and ultimately learn a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's plenty for me to learn. I know that much. You're the man that's gone around the world slapping balls. I've done a fair share of it myself, but
well, let's start with that, Gaz. So your sports that you've played, is it rugby fives and one wall handball, right?
Yeah, I would say they're my main ones. I mean, I did captain the England team, which we found out is actually not called Galocha anymore.
That might be called Iscalicorda.
Iscalicorda, yeah. So, but mainly, and obviously I've dabbled in carts and the international game and other things like this. But my main sports, I started with playing rugby.
Yeah, and I should say that, when I studied medicine, right? And when you study medicine, they basically say you're going to learn a new language when you learn this, because we're going to tell you about all this weird diseases and stuff. And everything is a new word. Now, Gareth, you've just said about 5 different words, which I'm pretty sure people at home won't even know what they are. But we will, over the course of the Ball Slapping podcast, cover all of these things. You'll know what cartsen is and Iscalicorda, as my perfect Spanish will say. But Gaz, so let's start origin-wise for you. Rugby fives, what even is that?
Right, so rugby fives is a ball game where you hit a ball with your hands. A hard ball in a court, not unlike a squash court. Although if you're familiar with squash courts, you'll know they're kind of made with plaster and wood, whereas rugby fives court is harder than that to accommodate for the harder ball. And yeah, so you strap on gloves on both hands and you play a game hitting a ball against the wall.
Yeah, very much like squash.
Very much like squash. There's a tin or a line near the bottom of the court that you've got to hit it above. You've got to keep it within the lines at the top of the court. And otherwise, yeah, if it bounces twice, you lose. So yeah, that's sort of my preferred handball sport, I guess. Probably just because it's the one I played first and fell in love with first.
I agree with you. So I played rugby fives. I mean, we should say there's probably a few different types of fives. Basically, I think what I've learned over time is that every country has a version of hitting a ball against a wall with your hand, has a version of hitting a ball up and down a field with your hand or a racket, and you can hit a ball against a wall with a racket as well. And fives is the English handball version. It's quite a historic thing. There's a few of them: Eton fives, rugby fives, Winchester fives. But yeah, I played rugby fives as well, and that led me into a career in one wall handball as well, where basically because I said every country hits balls against walls with their hands. The international standard for that, because the easiest one to play is where there's just one wall, like a square on the wall and a square on the floor. Just hit the wall, make it land in, and rally away. And that is one wall handball, which is played, well, a lot in America, but in the last 10 years has really taken off all across Europe and other parts of the world as well.
Yeah, and it's done so really because, like you say, there's so many different sports. It turns out that a lot of people enjoy hitting a ball against a wall or across a net or what have you with their hands just because it's so simple and so basic. There's, a sort of convergent evolution of these different sports that kind of look the same, but they have different skill sets. So I remember when I got involved in one wall handball side of stuff, the international scene was kind of breaking out there because, if we're good at rugby fives, you can't necessarily expect, say, people in the Basque region of Spain to be good at rugby fives just because they can hit a ball with their hands. Their games are really super nuanced as well. So, even if we're good ball players, we can't necessarily compete at these regional variants of the sport. So that one wall handball, it being sort of one wall, the floor, the same ball, every international country plays the same game. So we get to find out who's best, which you otherwise wouldn't.
Yeah. Have you ever seen something like this for rackets, like a multi-court masters? Or is it more of a hand thing?
I don't know, really. I mean, I suppose it's accepted in the tennis world that you're going to be playing on different surfaces, but broadly, the courts will all be, well, their courts are the same size, there's just different surfaces. Whereas, with the handball sports, the courts can be wildly different. And there can be so many ridiculous rules that you would never work out. We've played games where if you hit the ball up into a balcony, far yonder in the distance, and you whack it into some sort of Romeo Juliet looking balcony window, you win a point. But you just wouldn't know that. You'd assume like it was a gallery for someone to view the game. But no, you whack it through there or through the door or up the stairs or whatever, and you get a point. But we wouldn't know that. There's some funny old games out there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And rugby fives, I would say, is not one of them. Of all of the handball sports I've played, rugby fives
the most normal.
It's kind of the most normal. There's no weird stuff coming out the walls. There's it's
not like
just
another kind of fives we could mention.
That's it. Yeah, well, both other types of fives, Eton and Winchester, have got kind of odd things going on. Whereas rugby fives, it was just a playing court. Just imagine, just like looking at a squash court, really.
Yeah, fair enough. Before we get into like more of the concept of like ball slaps and the general things we're going to cover, because I'm aware we're talking a lot about handball. But why did you think you fell in love with something like fives, that kind of racket hand sport?
It's a funny one, isn't it? You sort of, in the world that we're in of playing these games, everyone's got the same sort of contagion. You like, they just love it. You're either suited to it or you're not. I know some people love field games and team games, and there is an element to team games in some handball sports, especially, and in our sort of ones that we specialize in, only doubles or singles. But that team element of doubles really appealing. I don't think I'm much a team player. No, I am, but you know what I mean? I don't think team sports suit me as much as just me and my partner playing doubles or just me on my own. I like that sort of solitary nature or the camaraderie of just the two people playing against each other. And so rugby fives massively appeals to me in the same way that all court games do. Yeah. I'm much more interested in things like badminton than, and squash and fives than I am in football or cricket, even though I love those sports. to play, I just find they're just more fun for me. And I like the angles, the way the ball goes around the walls and might do something a bit odd. For me, it's a fun sport. Not easy, but once you pick it up, the rallying, the feel of the ball hitting your hand and like making that smack against the wall and all that is just just top tier.
And I suspect that people that do a lot of other racket sports, hand sports, you're going to feel the same kind of thing. So, that brings us on to, again, why this podcast? And I suppose the first question some people might ask is why it's called ball slaps or ball slapping. So the YouTube is ball slaps, and this is obviously the ball slapping podcast.
Of course.
Now, I think it's because my friend suggested this name ages ago because I said, well, I didn't even say I played handball because there was this really annoying rebrand like 2012. I think there was chat of trying to get one wall handball into the Olympics. And the Olympic Committee had said, well, you can't call it handball, by the way, because we already have that other sport called team handball where you throw a football into a goal.
Yeah.
So the Irish and the Americans, in their wisdom, they changed the name to Wallball.
Yeah.
Which, if I say that in an English accent, Wallball, it's really hard to say. But if you say an Irish or American, it's probably a bit easier.
Yeah.
Like Wallball.
Wallball.
Yeah. But
so otherwise the L's get lost. You're just sort of saying warball, you might be saying water bottle, like the Americans love to say, we pronounce things.
Yeah. And I set up the organisation in the UK. It was called UK Wallball. And I was just forever trying to spell things out on the phone. It was a real mess. And also, if you say I play handball to people in the world, I think half the world will think of it as our handball. They will think of it as hitting a ball against a wall. Especially if you're from the Americas, for example.
I was going to say, certainly going west.
Or Australia, Japan as well. But if you say you play handball in I wouldn't say everywhere in Europe, but especially like, Eastern Europe and Central Europe, they'll immediately think of team handball.
Yeah, Scandinavia, Germany, the handball scene, the team handball there is massive.
Exactly.
And it's already in the Olympics. So they got there first.
They did. They got on TV. Yeah. But if I say I play wall ball to someone, they've got no bloody idea what the hell I'm talking about because nobody knows what wall ball is. And has changed in the last 10 years, especially because my organisation and a few others have actually pushed the name. And now the kids are saying it feels more real. However, it's still not great. And when I said to my friend, I play wall ball, and then you have to explain it. I'm hitting a ball against the wall with my hand. And he was like, and then people always say, I played that. Everyone has done this sport, but they've called it something else. Yeah. So when you're at school, it's called pat ball, slap ball, that kind of thing. And my friend said, well, you just play, you do ball slaps, don't you? And I was like, oh, I do. And I play for GB. So it's like, you do international ball slaps. So international ball slaps, I thought was a great name. And I've carried that through. I've lost the international bit, but ball slaps is where we've landed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's more obvious than a name than fives. Like, we've said this before with fives. Like, what the hell? Where does it even come from? Is because we've got 5 fingers on each hand?
And it might not even be that, by the way.
And it doesn't so much tell you what the game's about either. No one's going to have a clue if you say wall ball or fives. I think wall ball has been used by CrossFit communities. So throwing balls up against heavy medicine balls.
But there are also this rebrand isn't just handball. I think one of the most egregious things, I think wall ball's a bad rebrand, but the worst rebrand I think in sports history is probably when in the UK, they changed racquetball to squash 57. Which I think because the ball is 57 millimeters in diameter. I mean, that's so stupid, isn't it? Terrible name. Everyone should still call it racquetball. I don't know why they changed it. Maybe because it's not American racquetball they're playing.
I think we'll have to ask them. Maybe we'll get them on the podcast and ask them at some point. That'd be a really good idea. I mean, the racquetball that we play in the UK is generally played on squash courts because there's an abundance of them. But of course, traditionally in America, that's not the case. The court is much longer.
It's like a cube.
And it's slightly narrower. Hit the ball off the ceiling and fun things like that.
There's no tin.
And there's no tin, so you can be hitting the ball super, super low.
Yeah. And then, I said, you travel around, especially if you go places like Basque region or South America. People they're using the same court that you use with your hands, which is how I got into it. And then suddenly they come along with a paddle or a pallet or a racket, and they're doing other stuff. And you realise actually these courts are multi-purpose courts. You can play loads of different things on it. They're all incredibly fun. They're all a bit weird.
Yeah.
They're all a bit absurd. They're a bit niche.
Yeah.
And they've got their own little niche, weird, absurd communities, but that's what makes them great.
Yeah, I agree. That we were talking about the simplicity of the one wall court earlier, that it's just a wall and a floor marked out. Well, that might be true, but even with that little blank of a canvas, you can still play multiple sports on it. We know we play with the bigger ball to play one wall handball with, but you can also play the small ball version, which is the great Willie Polanco, I'm sure you're going to talk to at some point in this pod.
Yeah.
World champion at the small ball. And they also play with a pumped ball, like an over pumped ball.
Yeah.
And that introduces a different dynamic. You think you know one sport really well, but then again, just change the ball up slightly and it's a whole different skill set.
And I should say as well that complementing this, I mean, I've plugged it a few times, but this podcast is born out of a YouTube channel, which you might find the YouTube channel through this podcast in a roundabout way that the world works in perfect unity and equivalence. But the YouTube channel will cover these sports as well. And my aim there is, we'll still interview people. I get behind the scenes. I try out as many sports as I can. So right now, as we're recording this, the last video that went out was paddle tennis. Obviously taken off pretty well. You don't call it paddle tennis, really. It's not really paddle tennis. It's just paddle. It's only padel if you're American, because they've got paddle. They've got paddle court tennis or whatever. So paddle's there, real tennis videos coming up, and many, many more. So if you want to find out about some of these weird sports, I would say search for Ball Slaps on YouTube and subscribe to that so you can get
There's some
too.
Interesting games and also some interesting characters, people that come out of these games. I'm sure there's interesting people in lots of mainstream sports, but there's as you go down into the more niche sports, you do find some real characters, and also they're really highly accessible to talk to as well, which is great. One of the lovely things about these smaller niche handball games is the barrier to entry is quite low. If you want to play, people will be saying, "Oh yes, please come along and play." And then even things like playing in world championships and things like that, really, you've only got to be able to afford the flight and you're on your way to go play. Well, how successful you are is another matter. But, there's a real low barrier for entry to get into it.
Yes.
And also to, meet the people involved. A lot of them we're kind of friends with.
Yeah.
So we get to chat to anyway. But it's more accessible. If we're doing a football podcast now, we're unlikely to get Lionel Messi to chat to, but happily doing our little fives and stuff like that.
And like you say, these things are accessible. So when we run like one-wall tournaments here, it goes right from the pro level, pro in inverted commas, all the way down to the beginner. And yet other sports do it too. For example, like my accolades, right? So I'm a very good one-wall player. I've won European titles, whatever. But I am a world champion, Gav. I'm a world champion at outdoor racquetball.
Oh, yes.
I won
Vegas,
in 2011. I won that in Vegas. Now,
right.
I'm a world champion asterisk of the beginner grade.
Yeah, well.
And I had to beat my mate, an old man, and a guy with one leg. But
trophy's
I did it.
Trophy.
A trophy's trophy, exactly.
Yeah.
So accessible, fun, and pretty awesome. In your experience, as you've traveled around and tried a few of these things, what would you say is the weirdest version of any of these sports you've seen?
It's got to be that Escalacorda.
Yeah,
it's got to be this. Now, this is a court that's 50 meters long.
50 meters long. It's like a mini aircraft hangar.
Yeah,
with some giant steps that are coming down one side of it.
Stairs all the length of the whole court. You got big stairs.
Yeah,
all the way down one side of the court. Spectators even sit on there's a net in the middle of this 50-meter court.
Yes.
Which you have to hit the ball over. You can hit the ball onto the stairs and watch as the ball slowly cascades down the stairs. But before it touches the ground, off that bottom stair, you got to hit it back over the net. And sometimes the spectators are sitting there. You'll hit the ball, whack it into some people just sitting there watching the game, and they'll sort of politely go, ball, it's on the way, move it along, and then wait for it to cascade down the stairs through the spectators before you can hit it back over the net. I mean, it's a truly strange court. The rules are pretty simple, I'll give you that, but court-wise, it's really, really bizarre.
I'd say that's pretty true. And some of the spectators have a little dinner tray with them as well, so they can kind of shield their face.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's amazing. I'm pretty sure these things sort of come from the way the street was built, or the streets in Spain, for example, were built. So when I was on about balconies and stuff earlier in the courts and stairs and things, because they existed as part of some town somewhere in northern Spain or what have you. And so the modern courts that they've built are just designed to look like the ancient streets.
Yeah. And that's pretty common, actually. I've just been doing a deep dive into real tennis. And real tennis, you have this like the little balconies, you have holes in the wall
Yeah.
and galleries, and
Yeah.
they're all there. So they probably come from the marketplace and like the little doorways where, you know, I was going to say, well, they're the priest, not vicars. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Those guys would serve you, like the friars would serve you some beer through the wall and stuff like that. So they do come from these historic places. And
Yeah.
certainly those Spanish trinkets, a bit like the roads.
Yeah, and same Eton Fives.
That's a weird one.
Which is modelled on the wall of the chapel at Eton.
Yeah, because like the boys just wanted to hit balls
Just wanted to
against
hit a
the
ball
wall.
against the wall.
And that's what I mean. A lot of these sports are also just like, they're just kids. Kids come up with ways of hitting balls around. And
That's right.
for some reason, adults professionalize it and take it to the next level.
Yeah.
Maybe like pickleball. No, pickleball wasn't started by kids actually, but you know, it feels like a kiddie kind of sport.
Well, I mean, I'm amazed at how ignorant I was about pickleball. I assumed because of the recent uptake and interest that this was a fairly new sport, but then I find out that it was actually
it's decades.
invented in 1964.
Yeah. And the dog was called Pickle or something.
But these was that so?
Yeah.
Pickles the dog. Didn't he find the World Cup or something in a bush? But anyway, that's by the by. Yeah. Well, what was I talking about? Pickleball.
Yes.
I can't remember my point now. Never mind.
Don't worry, we'll come back to pickleball on the podcast. For me, the weirdest court and the most fun. Last year, we had a chance to go to Portugal and we played this incredible game called Church Pelota, where you're hitting a ball against the wall, but the wall is the entire side of a church. And it hits the floor. You've got 3 on a team, but because the side of a church, you've got a doorway with like awnings and sculptures. You've got windows with like grates on it and cracks on the wall, cracks on the floor. It was the perfect mix between luck and skill.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly fun. So you hit it into like, you know, the doorway sculpture or ping all over the place, allowed to bounce once. Oh, it was so much fun. And what I came away thinking about that was that, yeah, it's super fun. It has leveled the playing field because there's a lot of luck involved in that as well.
Yeah.
I felt like a lot of sports push, you know, they're trying to build courts. We've got to build courts. And I was thinking maybe we should do Church Pelota because you know what there are a lot of in the world? Churches.
Yeah, but unfortunately, this is what we used to do. And that's how fives and handball sports in the UK used to be, was against church walls and what have you.
Yeah.
Until...
Who stopped that?
Well, yeah, I mean, apparently it was annoying people. And,
I just think like, you know, churches are everywhere. You've got millions of courts. You get guaranteed crowd on a Sunday. And it's like, it's literally the only sport in the world where you can legitimately thank God if you win.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's great.
Yeah. It's a good point. Yeah, like I say, though, unfortunately, we did used to have that, and that was amazing. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to do it anymore. All the no ball games signs go up, no ball slapping signs go up, and then that's it. So, and hence, I think, you know, that's obviously partly responsible for the decline in games being played at all if you're not allowed to go play anywhere.
In the UK now, there's another push to take down those no ball games allowed signs. We'll be talking about that kind of thing, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
On another podcast because, you know, physical activity is dropping off and simple sports like this, they're part of the answer for some demographics.
Yeah.
Simple sports which cost a bit of money, like paddle, another answer because that's got a lot of people active. So, you know, there's a lot of things to talk about there. Which
Oh, definitely. And I remember what I was going to say about pickleball now, which is that if it's been around since 1964 and it's only been sort of mega popular, as far as I know, in the last few years, there's absolutely hope for all of these sports that we all enjoy, that things are going to sort of gain in popularity one year and perhaps decline for a few years and come back again. Squash, for example, has just got back into the Olympics after...
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's ever been in the Olympics before, but they've tried year on year.
Having a billionaire on your board probably helps, but I'm not making any judgments about that.
No, that's fine. We could all do with a billionaire on the board, but yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, but it was hugely popular in the 70s and 80s, squash, and it you know, it's declined in popularity, but I think the Olympics will bring that back. Broadly, people have got to watch out for kind of like, like the padel guys. Oh, we've made it now. Everyone's playing padel. Well, what about in 10 years? Are they still going to be doing that? Or will another sport a la pickleball or padel have come along to, you know, take its place for a bit? Who knows? But either way, if the upswing is there, that people are hitting balls against walls, whether it's with their hands or rackets or anything else, I'm delighted. I think that's a positive and a good thing because everyone should be playing these games. They're so easy to start doing.
Yeah.
And just super fun.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about one a little segment I think we're going to introduce.
Yeah,
Maybe
go
it
on.
won't be successful, in which case
We'll see.
you'll only hear it today.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to call Slap of the Week.
Oh, sick. Right.
Slap of the Week. So I want this to be like a highlight from the world of handball,
Yeah.
tennis, racket, whatever. Like, normally I guess we talk about an insane rally we've seen or something like that. I mean, have you seen anything this week which has been amazing? Or have you played anything which you're like, oh, that's a good intro for Slap of the Week?
Oh, good grief. This week. I mean, this is a great question to ask me, totally unprepared for. This week, I've been coaching this week. Coaching yesterday. It's down at the centre. And there's some pretty good plays now. Like, we've been playing for the last few months. We're playing the 2-bounce game with some of the younger kids. And I've spent several months trying to tell them, like, hit it hard, low, into that corner, like, that's your angle, that's your height, do it, and you'll beat me every time. And the great thing that I've had this week is that, they're starting to kick my good. just by placing the ball in the right place and taking advantage of my old knee.
Fair enough. That's a good Slap of the Week. There's me thinking you talk about Alcaraz winning the US Open, but
well, I don't. All this talk of niche sports, I don't know if we're ready for tennis.
No, we're not ready for tennis. I'll go niche as well because I've just come back this weekend from a place called Teruel, which is in just above Valencia in Spain. We got invited to a tournament over there where this is really cool because, like I said, a lot of these games are historic and they do die out because you got historic courts. They also make good places to build some flats. Yeah. So they're kind of gone, and when people stop playing them, no one cares. Yeah. But there's one guy over there called Rafa Garcia, and he loves the old sport of Teruel Pelota. There is a video about it if you want to watch it. But what he's tried to do is replicate the old courts on some of the modern courts. Built mini courts within big frontons. And then he gets people from all over Spain and foreigners. So the English team, Irish team were there, and resurrecting this game with like handmade balls that are made at the scene. It's really fun, really good camaraderie. Me and my partner, Pen Chai, overperformed considering we weren't expected to get anywhere, but ended up getting the bronze medal, so that was pretty cool. Right. But I just think that's cool. That's a great story for like someone is literally resurrecting an old sport, showing what it was, and that helps people into the new as well. Because you get kids, like there are people in wheelchairs playing, there are kids playing, there are women playing, who are then going to go and play the more like regular pelota sports. And they might not have done that otherwise. And in the meantime, you've got news that's being published and is on TV about a handball sport, which might lead to people saving that sport.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think they do quite well out in Spain and Portugal with the traditional side of their games and keeping those alive.
Yeah. Just before we crack on with that, why do you think that these kind of sports, the traditionalism and the courts are still there in places like the Basque Country, Spain, but they're just gone from America, the UK, faster move?
Part of me thinks that it must be something to do with facilities being behind paywalls, and also possibly things like red tape and court construction costs. I suspect that in Spain, it being massive as a country, they may have more space to build a pelota city. Whereas you try and do that in London, the real estate itself sort of almost outprices anyone wanting to build the facilities for people to play in. And then, like we were saying before, when there's public facilities, there's a huge amount of competition for a space where you can put up some walls, whether that's private flats or other sports facilities or anything else that the community might need. I think we'd be fairly low down in the pecking order in terms of building facilities that people need in order to play the games. I think that's got to be one major reason why handball and racquetball in the US very much behind closed doors in gyms. And when when people are struggling for money, one of the first things that goes is the gym membership, particularly if it's an expensive private gym. And then even, the world the way it is, even gyms that do have squash courts and racquetball courts and other facilities like that, they look at it as like, crikey, we're trying to run a business here. So we've got all this square footage of squash court that we could turn into a spinning studio. Yeah. Instead of having two guys in there having a game, we could fit 20 people in there on static bikes. And that square footage argument makes sense if you're trying to run a business. Unfortunately, it's just to the detriment of these smaller sports, because apparently if you don't have them occupied 24 hours a day with people playing on court, then it's not worth doing. For me, I just think, if you had 10 or 12 people playing per
Yeah.
day, that's a huge success. But of course, it's not, because they're only bringing in 50, 60 quid for the club, and it's just not enough. Those would be my reasons. I think it's purely financial, because there's nothing in terms of the playability of the sport and the fun that people have when they're playing it that would put them off, coming and playing again. I think it's just location, facilities, and facilities being behind paywalls.
Yeah, yeah. I'd probably add on to that some of the societal things which I've seen, what I find quite interesting. And so, as well as doing other stuff, I've worked in sports development for almost 20 years now. And you're really seeing some of the impacts. I remember being at a conference, I don't know how many years ago now, but, we were like, oh, why is the sports taking off? And people were like, well, sports are just rivaling each other. We've got to stop rivaling each other. And then a woman who was there, who was from one of the tech startups, actually, stood up. She was like, you guys are all idiots. It's not sports rivaling sports that are taking kids and young people away. It's things like Netflix and everything else, because
Sure.
they'd rather do that, and they'd rather digest sport in a different way, which traditionalism doesn't adapt to. And maybe in places like Spain, there's still a bit more like a bit of a traditional aspect. The mayor still comes down, and you also have these multi-use courts where, like I say, if you have a front-on court, you can play like 6, 7 different sports on it. If you have a squash court, they only really want you playing one sport.
Yeah.
The dirty one is squash 57, which a lot of squash people don't think you should be playing,
Don't think, right.
even though I think it's a great sport. So maybe you can play 2 on there. But that's still only 2 little things you can do.
Yeah.
So, I think there's other barriers which have got in the way. And at the same time, financial incentives have moved away. People fall out of love with it. We've hyper professionalized sport as well, in terms of like, you're only going to want to play stuff that you see on TV. And when we were growing up in the UK, there was this amazing show on a Sunday called Grandstand, and you just sat in front of the TV, and because you didn't have Netflix, you only had 4 or 5 channels. You couldn't channel hop anyway because you didn't want to
So
watch
you
the
wanna watch
news
it,
or
yeah.
the EastEnders omnibus. So you just put on like the
Transworld
Grandstand.
Sport. It's, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. It's Channel 4. It's Transworld Sport.
Yeah, Transworld Sport or Grandstand. And they would just play a variety of different sports, which gave minor niche sports coverage. And now, no niche sport will get any decent coverage. It will just be one of the big 4. And if that's the case, then people won't see it. They won't know what it is. They won't do it. And then it just kind of trickles down. I think there's a lot of reasons behind it. But I think in some countries, they still want to push some of it. And also they turn some of the courts into community centres as well. So for example, in the Basque country, every town seems to have like a big front-on court in the town. And they use it for sport, sure, but they're also using it for meetings, for birthday parties, for all this other stuff. And I think we could learn a lot.
I mean, there's so many elements on there. It could even be climate. If you're going to have outdoor courts in the UK, it does make it tricky. I know there's that brilliant facility in Ireland where they obviously also have a lot of rain, which is just like, it's kind of an open-sided, but it's still protected from the elements above. They've got sort of 4 courts in a row there, protects you play all year round. But, these things cost a lot of money. So, we're in the market for an angel investor, I think, to try and build us some facilities we can play here, which aren't in schools or in gyms.
Yeah, if you have £20 million and you want to not make any money back, but want to build the most fantastic, amazing hand racket paddle centre in the UK, just get in touch with the podcast.
Yeah, please do.
And we'll help you out with that. We actually have plans.
Ball slapping podcast.
Speaking of what's kind of come up on the podcast, I suppose it's a bit up in the air, but what kind of stuff do you want to see?
So, really good question. Well, more of me probably is no. I think actually what I want to hear is I'd love for there to be engagement, questions.
Yeah,
I'd love for people to, if they're hearing this, to say, "What the hell are you on about?" Or to ask, ask for advice where they can play, or suggest sports that we can talk about we may not have heard.
Totally.
I'd love for like a madcap inventor of new mental sport to get in touch and say, help me promote this, and for us to look into it and have a go at it and, and report back.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this being a journey of discovery and finding out loads about things that I really am super ignorant. But also, I think I'm going to learn loads off of people playing other smaller niche sports. How have they kept it going? How did they discover it? Why Why is their sport more successful than others when they're kind of bedfellows and cousins in a way at sports? You know, why is one more popular than the other? I'm fascinated by paddle at the minute. I'm fascinated by that. Why has that had such a massive upsurge in players and reputation all of a sudden when it's been around for so long?
Yeah, I agree. And on top of that, I think that every now and then I would like to add a ball slapping index where we can, after we discuss or find out about a certain sport, I think we should induct it into a hall of fame, per se.
That's a good idea.
And
There should be
maybe even controversially rate it out of 10.
Yeah, that's super controversial, but I totally agree. I think that's a good idea.
I think we'd have to rate it on like non-technical, stupid, absurd things, which
Yeah,
you
we don't
can't
wanna
argue. It's
upset
all
anyone.
subjective. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's probably roughly it for the first podcast.
Sounds good to me.
So just to wrap up, what I think everyone should do, first of all, subscribe to this podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And please do share it around. So obviously, you know, this podcast will go further. If you share it, please share it. And, you know, you can follow the links, listen to it on your favorite channels. And if you're listening to this, we do record it as well. So if you do go onto the Ball Slaps YouTube, you can watch us with this first setup with microphones probably covering our face, but at least you kind of see who we are. And yeah, that'd be lovely. If you have any suggestions, questions, or anything you want us to cover, let us know. Drop us a line and we'll take it from there. So Gareth, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And
good luck with this podcast. I'm excited for it.
Thanks very much. And I guess I'll see you next week where, fingers crossed, if all goes to plan, we'll be talking about real tennis. All right. See you later.